For over a century, voting in the United States was limited to men. Laws and traditions silenced millions of women, but their silence wouldn't last. The women's suffrage movement would rise up and demand equality and the right to vote. The women's suffrage movement in the United States began in the mid-1800s. In 1848, Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott, frustrated by the unequal treatment of women, took action by organizing the Seneca Falls Convention. There were a number of laws and traditions they believed were unjust. First, women didn't have the right to vote. Secondly, women had limited rights in marriage. Husbands had full control of property, money, and even their children. Thirdly, women were excluded from many jobs and schools. Fourthly, women's voices weren't heard, especially at important public meetings. At the convention, they and others spoke out about these concerns and wrote the Declaration of Sentiments, which demanded equal rights for women. This convention sparked the beginning of the women's suffrage movement. The fight was long and challenging. Over time, the movement steadily gained attention and support through powerful organizing and bold tactics. Some of these tactics were the use of speeches and publications. Leaders like Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton traveled the country, giving speeches, writing articles, and publishing pamphlets to build support. Groups like the National Woman's Party aggressively used newspapers and newsletters to spread their message. They also capitalized on the use of public events. The movement frequently held conventions, rallies, and parades to draw attention and gain support from both women and men. The formation of alliances with other movements was another successful tactic. Early suffragists often worked with other groups such as the abolitionists and labor activists, linking voting rights to broader struggles for equality. Protests, marches, hunger strikes, and civil disobedience were also utilized in the fight. Women led numerous peaceful demonstrations, often wearing white to represent unity and hope. Civil disobedience, knowingly breaking laws to protest injustice, was used by some activists. For example, Susan B. Anthony voted illegally in 1872 and was arrested for it, using her trial to bring national attention to women's suffrage. By the early 1900s, the movement grew more assertive. Women began picketing outside the White House and, when arrested, many went on hunger strikes to protest their treatment and demand change. Lastly, there was the use of petitions and lobbying to drive the movement's agenda in the legal arena. They gathered signatures and met with lawmakers to push for new laws and constitutional changes. Who were the leaders of the women's suffrage movement? The movement wasn't led by just one person. It was powered by a diverse group of strong, passionate women over many decades. Each of these leaders brought unique strengths and played a vital role in moving the movement forward. Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott helped launch the movement in the mid-1800s. Stanton also wrote many of the movement's foundational documents. Susan B. Anthony was a powerful speaker and tireless organizer who worked closely with Stanton. Sojourner Truth, a formerly enslaved woman, became a passionate advocate for both women's rights and the abolition of slavery. Her famous speech, "Ain't I a Woman?" challenged both racism and sexism. Alice Paul emerged as a bold leader in the early 1900s. She organized protests, picketed the White House, and went on hunger strikes while imprisoned, demanding attention for the cause. Ida B. Wells was a fearless journalist and activist. She called out racism within the suffrage movement, insisting that true equality must include all women. Together, these women and many others helped lead the fight. Their efforts eventually shifted public opinion and pressured the government to act, leading to the 19th Amendment in 1920, which granted women the right to vote. Unfortunately, even after the 19th Amendment, many racially marginalized women were still denied voting rights. They faced voter suppression through poll taxes, literacy tests, and violence, especially in the South. These barriers weren't fully removed until the Voting Rights Act of 1965. In conclusion, the suffrage movement proved that a democratic and free nation can evolve and improve. And when people unite for a just cause, they can create positive change and build a brighter future for everyone.